So what's next on our list? Meow. Oh. Well, we did that.
Do it.
Camelot. Let's talk about
Camelot.
Let's
For the France, I hear you calling.
let's talk about the people you play as now, because you kind of talked about them.
I play as. Okay. I play the fantasy version of the game. Question. You know more about 40k than I do. The Apocalypse rules. Is that for, like, giant armies of, like, big units of troops?
Okay. So, there's point limits in normal games.
Yes.
So, certain amounts of troops and stuff. And people eventually made their armies so big that they had to specialize their armies. So this is the tank-busting army, this is the anti-mech, this is the anti-infantry, this is the anti-tyrannid, this is the anti-necron, etc., etc.
Yeah, the armies to fight different races.
Armageddon... Apocalypse. Why did I say Armageddon?
It's Apocalypse. Because they're very similar.
No, because there's a planet called Armageddon, and it's always talked about. Yeah. It's kind of the base for Apocalypse rules. Apocalypse is pretty much no point limit.
Seriously?
Just put everything you got out there.
Okay.
Which those games can get huge. Huge. That game.
That's tiny. No, that's no, not that game.
That's
this game. This is the minis, which probably has been.
Those are the minis. Oh, I'm sure they've been discontinued.
This one.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it's still the Warhammer skirmish type rules.
It also introduced flyers. It introduced the big titans and stompas and Stompas.
So orc time's over. So Warhammer 40k Apocalypse still features the squad based skirmish rules.
Yes, okay. Everything's the same except for no point limit and some new tweaks here and there.
Okay, so it's really...
And someone can yell at me if I'm wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong. Not to sound petty or anything.
I love that little dude. It's a little raven. I actually bought one off of eBay. I'm saving him for a special one because it's... Anyway, where is it? Battle Host. War of the Ring. War of the Ring, as... you'll see when I open up the picture. See, it focuses more on big movement of troops. Yeah. Which is much more like the Warhammer Fantasy Battles rules. Calm down. It's gonna be useful in doing a giant battle, so that it's not. I've got to say, this is useful when you're doing something more like the Apocalypse rules, because can you imagine if you had a 15,000 point army fighting another 15,000 point army, how long that battle would take?
True.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's useful for its certain circumstances. But there really is no, like, big blocks of troops movement in 40k?
No, there's not.
Weird.
I like it. I really do like it, because you can individually place them behind cover, and one person may not get the same cover as another person.
Mm-hmm. No, I like the idea.
Battlefleet Gothic. Oh, Battlefleet, not Battlefield. Battlefleet Gothic, which has been discontinued, and there's nothing there.
I don't even know why it is still on the website.
So that they can have some nostalgia.
Fine.
Grump.
Anyway.
Grump.
So, back to Warhammer Fantasy, which I am getting Benjamin into via the discontinued skirmish and warband rules.
Yeah.
There's also Mordheim.
We're going to try it. But anyways, Mordheim.
It's 40k in fantasy cosplay.
Mordheim, yes.
Mordheim is basically an empire city that got struck by a giant meteorific magical storm and died.
Is that the... Okay, going completely off topic. Was that the city that was in the cinematic for the online version of Warhammer?
Entirely possibly, because the whole idea of Mordheim was basically role-playing with small units of troops. Basically your warband, your squad, going in against other squads in, like, sitting fighting. So it's basically city fighting rules. Anyway, I play in Warhammer Fantasy, which Benjamin is going to play the orcs in as well.
Yes, I'll try.
Yes, you will. And hey, we can even get you, like, a cosplay dwarf army that you can use for fantasy.
But they're so terrible with their giant beards.
We're not buying you those dwarves, we're buying you hobbit dwarves.
Oh, cosplay. Okay, gotcha.
In cosplay.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, no, we're not buying you those. Although, I gotta say, if you ever get a chance to get a metal figure, take your Imperial Primer, coat the whole thing, and just leave it. It looks really cool, because all the deep crevices turn black, and you've got this kind of you've got this, like, silver that's now slightly grayed, but it's still obviously a shiny silver, but then all the black crevices are, the little crevices are black, and it looks really stunning. It looks like this pewter figure that's just like...
Now, do I dry brush that on, or do I just go...
You would wash it on, because it's a wash. Not your paint. You have to specifically get a black wash, which is why I use the Imperial Primer.
Okay, and what do? You just dip it in and go over it?
Yeah, you just wash the whole thing.
Okay.
Like, coat the whole model in the black.
So, in other words, I should probably paint over my blood effects real quick, and then wash it, then put the blood on.
On what?
On whatever I have that's covered with blood.
Oh, your blood
Because I don't want my
effects.
blood to be washed dirty, I don't think.
Right. Well, if you're doing a wash, the wash kind of gets everywhere, so you would probably have to retouch up your blood afterwards.
Yeah, so I'll just cover the... I will paint over the blood. And
Okay,
then,
back to Warhammer
yes.
Fantasy. I play the army called the Bretonnians. The Bretonnians are your classic medieval knights, very much like, your knights of King Arthur and of the Middle Ages, as opposed to the more Germanic Renaissance of the Empire. We are the kind of high fantasy, high Middle Ages knights.
You're very original. You're original knight, like the original.
Yeah, the original knight. We're much more historical. Bretonnia is heavily based on the Arthurian myth of Camelot. So much so that we actually have the Green Knight as a hero.
Awesome. He's so BA.
He's pretty cool. Yeah. The Lady of the Lake is kind of the primary deity type person.
Is she literally called the Lady of the Lake?
Oh yes, she's literally called the Lady of the Lake. And so various things like that.
And your king rides a griffin.
The king rides a griffin, which isn't original to
I know,
Arthur,
but it's pretty.
But it's pretty cool. So they're very kind of historical Middle Ages, and the reason I got into Warhammer Fantasy is that I had bought some Lord of the Rings miniatures. I had some orcs, which I've since gotten rid of. I had some Gondorian soldiers. I had Gandalf and Aragorn and Legolas and Merry and Pippin. And some Rohirrim, which I've increased my Rohirrim a little bit.
Originally, you got those, and I remember you gotten those, and you were painting them to be Amirian knights.
The Bretonnians?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, the reason that I got into, as I was getting to, the reason I got into Warhammer Fantasy and Bretonnia is I was wanting some medieval knights miniatures, and really, let's face it, as expensive as they are, Games Workshop has the best miniatures in the world. I mean, they do.
They do. I'm nodding my head yes.
Yeah. Just take a look at their Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit miniatures, and you will admit, yeah, these are the best miniatures out there.
Yeah, because I've had a lot of people go, oh, yeah, the orcs and stuff, and the Space Marines, they look very cartoony, but they're, very high detail, and I'm like, oh, well, here, look at Lord of the Rings. What?
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually bought, like, 2 or 3 extra versions of the Gandalf from The Hobbit just because it was an awesome, awesome figure. And I had so much fun painting my first one that, yeah. So, yeah, very, very kind of historical, medieval. I like heraldry, so I paint lots of stuff. You're eating your ring.
I'm not eating my ring.
You have it in your mouth, though.
It's because I'm...
So I don't know where to go with this. Ask me questions.
What's their culture like?
Well, according to the official rule book, which I don't exactly like, all the Warhammer worlds are very kind of dark and gritty.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they've been at war for 40,000 years, so...
Yeah.
It's always a time of war.
Yeah. So, in keeping with the kind of grunginess, you basically have the lords who are the privileged, and they are the knights, and they're always on horseback. And then you have the kind of grungy, dirty peasants, which actually I don't like, which is why I'm not getting any of
Yeah,
their
I finally looked at some of the footmen. They do look like they're rotting away zombies. They almost look like they belong to the vampiric counts.
Exactly. So I am actually going to be mixing and matching, specifically with miniatures from perryminiatures.com, with a dash between Perry and miniatures, perry-miniatures.com. Those guys actually work as model sculptors for Games Workshop and are releasing their own historical lines. And there's some pretty good ones, especially in the War of the Roses and in the Agincourt lines that I want to use for Foot Knights. Yeah, but their whole kind of culture is based around the Lady of the Lake and the Holy Grail, and the knights will go on quests to find the Holy Grail. And if they drink from it, they basically become a living saint, which is pretty cool. I'm finally getting some Grail knights. Oh, so moving onwards, Camelot. So the Bretonnia being very much based on Arthur's Camelot, I decided that I would do some research on the coats of arms of the different Arthurian knights to paint on all my models, because that would be pretty cool to have a Arthur and his knights. What I noticed was fairly interesting was that there kind of are three big groups of coats of arms that are very similar, which indicates that there's a family connection. Mm-hmm. And it just struck me that basically the two main groups, on one hand, is the Lancelot group is basically the Lancelot family.
Camelot in father of France, I hear you call.
And on the other hand, you have the Mordred and Morgana Le Fay, and also Sir Gawain. Not a lot of people know this, but Sir Gawain, who, you know Gawain and the Green Knight. Gawain is actually the cousin of Mordred.
I think I'd heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
But probably from you, actually, now that I stop and think about it.
Anyway, so when Lancelot was discovered in his unfortunateness with the Queen, it makes sense why Camelot is split in two, because basically you have, on the one hand, the family that has to support Lancelot, even though he's kind of screwed up. And
kind of. Very much so.
Very much so, yeah. Then you have Mordred's family, who is very much against Lancelot. And and then you have King Arthur, unfortunately, in the middle. Kind of caught between the two sides. Gawain...
Family feud, medieval era, ladies and gentlemen.
Family feud, yes. Sir Gawain actually is one of the best knights. Gawain tried to oppose Mordred and his takeover, but unfortunately some of Lancelot's people killed Gawain. So, very, very tragic. Mm-hmm.